Welcome to the Rudick Report. Today is Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Looks like we're all about to pay much more at the pump this summer. Experts are warning about a huge price spike as fuel inventories continue to shrink, especially as OPEC slashed oil production by 1 million barrels per day. National gasoline inventories have fallen for a third straight week to their lowest level since 2014. Furthermore, total U.S. fuel oil production is on track to decrease this month after output fell last week by the largest amount since February of 2022. Gulf Coast and East Coast refineries have led the decline and produced 15% and 9% less fuel oil so far this month, respectively. With the United States yet again raising the debt ceiling, further devaluing the dollar, it is no wonder that OPEC cut production. It is clear that OPEC is artificially cutting production to raise prices and offset the further collapse of the dollar. When inventories start to shrink and people notice that prices are rapidly skyrocketing, they tend to hoard fuel before stations run completely dry. That's what happened in 2021 when Americans witnessed huge lines outside gas stations due to supply disruptions and higher costs. This year, one single extreme weather event left 7 states without fuel, according to CBS News, including Virginia and North Carolina, which even declared a state of emergency to prevent the crisis from escalating. More recently, the entire Miami-Fort Lauderdale area faced massive gasoline outages after a historic storm caused flooding and triggered a wave of panic buying by drivers filling their gas tanks. The Energy Information Association expects the prices of a barrel of oil to rise $10 above the current average, which will have a massive impact on gasoline prices all over the country. In some states, drivers are already paying over $4.90 per gallon, but the shock could be even higher as seasonal demand picks up, according to Bloomberg. Though a gallon of gas cost less than a year ago, those averages may not hold much longer. Analysts say prices can double in the near term and put a huge dent in people's budgets. Summer gas produces fewer emissions and is more expensive to produce, whereas cheaper winter gas ignites more easily to start your car in cold temperatures. Warm weather typically draws out more drivers too, significantly increasing the demand for gas. Just a few weeks ago, researchers at Carnegie Mellon University published a study in the Electricity Journal that found that U.S. gas pipelines are at risk of facing widespread outages. They urged U.S. officials to act before supplies drop to dangerously low levels. The scientists investigated vulnerabilities at production sites and outage risks at major U.S. stations. Carnegie Mellon researchers investigated the vulnerability of electric power generation to electric outages at U.S. pipeline compressor stations. They found that about 10% of such stations are electric and thus vulnerable to electric power outages, and they suggest steps to address the potentials for hazards. The North American Electricity Reliability Corporation has stated that addressing gas-electric interdependency risks is a top priority that requires immediate attention. But due in part to the lack of regulatory oversight of the gas transmission system, the extent of reliance on the electric compressors and the potential consequences of failure was not well understood, said Sean Simile, a doctorate candidate of engineering at public policy who led the study published in the Electricity Journal. Expect to pay much more at the pump in the short term, and in the longer term, we should all prepare for record outages and a downward spiral unlike anything we've experienced. You see these stories popping up everywhere, and stories about how our electrical grid is in danger, and of course now they are pushing a narrative that right-wing extremists or foreign actors are targeting our electrical grid. This is what they do. They send out their warnings, but in the end we know who will act and cause more headaches and potentially endanger lives of Americans. Prepare yourselves and your families, get extra food, get extra water, get cash for emergencies in case there's bank runs. And remember, typically you don't see bank runs like you used to years ago. People move money digitally now all over, from their computers and from their cell phones. So think about it. Just in the last 3 months, over $450 billion have been taken out of banks, and that number is accelerating. This is not financial advice, but it may make sense if you can to get out of debt and move some money to precious metals. There are many reputable companies to buy from, including JM Bullion, SD Bullion, and Money Metals. You can use whoever you think is best, but take some action before you can't. Thank you for listening, and until next time, this is the Rudick Report.